behalf of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, I, Shefali Rawat Agarwal, Ehsaas Woman of Kolkata, extend a warm welcome to you all for this special session of Tête-à-tea with the Tharoors, where we are delighted to host Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Ms. Shobha Tharoor Srinivasan, and Ms. Smita Tharoor for a one-of-a-kind informal discussion. The session is being hosted by Prabha Khaitan Foundation in association with Sanskriti Sagar and FICCI Calcutta. Allow me to take a moment to introduce the Prabha Khaitan Foundation and its work. Prabha Khaitan Foundation was established in the 1980s by the late Dr. Prabha Khaitan, an eminent literary enthusiast, cultural activist, and staunch feminist. The foundation holds a prominent place in India's literary, artistic, and cultural landscape, and is also committed to nurturing gender equality and women's empowerment. Through a diverse range of initiatives, including author meetups, book launches, literary festivals for both emerging and established writers, panel discussions, boutique festivals, and mesmerizing performances by singers, dancers, and theatre artists, the foundation continues to celebrate creativity and expression. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Nidhi Jhunjunwala, Chairperson of FICCI Calcutta, to address the gathering and share her warm words of welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's truly a privilege to stand here today at this remarkable gathering. On behalf of FICCI Ladies Organization, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the Prabha Khaitan Foundation and Sanskriti Sagar. Thank you for curating such a unique event and for giving us the opportunity to be partners in this special event. We are all eagerly looking forward to the session ahead. We are used to seeing Dr. Tharoor as the statesman, the wordsmith, and the author. But today, we have the rare pleasure of meeting the person behind the persona, alongside those who know him best, his sisters, Ms. Shobha Tharoor Srinivasan and Ms. Smita Tharoor. It promises to be a fascinating glimpse into the bond and the brilliance that runs through the Tharoor family. I want to extend a warm thanks to our moderator, Ms. Nishtha Gautam, whose insights we know will steer this conversation beautifully. For those who might be new to our community, FLOW is the women's wing of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. As the oldest and largest business chamber for women in Southeast Asia, our mission is simple yet powerful: to empower women through entrepreneurship and professional excellence. Here in the Kolkata chapter, we are deeply committed to translating that vision into action, focusing on inclusivity and sustainability at the grassroots. We are proud at our very own FLOW Skilling Center, which empowers women with vocational skills from tailoring to digital literacy, giving them the tools to become financially independent. Demonstrating our deep commitment to the underprivileged, we have launched a crucial nutrition program to the Sundarbans to ensure that children who lack resources receive a nutritious breakfast before school. We have also undertaken large-scale green initiatives, including significant tree planting drives with the railways and extensive plantation in the Sundarbans region, underscoring our commitment to a greener, more sustainable future. Alongside these efforts, we support entrepreneurs, offering mentorship and access to networks that help women scale their businesses and advocate for women's voices to be heard in boardrooms. Whether it is through driving inclusive economic independence or promoting environmental responsibility, FLOW believes that when you empower a woman, you empower an entire society. Once again, a big thank you to Prabha Khaitan Foundation and Sanskriti Sagar for bringing us all together. We look forward to an enlightening evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi. So we are privileged to welcome Dr. Shashi Tharoor. I welcome you to please come on the stage, sir, and take a seat. I would now like to warmly welcome Ms. Shobha Tharoor Srinivasan, and Ms. Smita Tharoor. Honorary Convenor and of Northeast Affairs and Ehsaas Woman of Kolkata, to felicitate our guests. Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Ms. Shobha Tharoor Srinivasan, and Ms. Smita Tharoor, and Ms. Nishtha Gautam. Terracotta artifacts from Central India. Terracotta artifacts are objects made from baked earth, a type of porous, reddish-brown clay fired at relatively low temperatures. And commence the conversation. Over to you.
Hello, Kolkata. So, how do you feel about three of them together on stage in a city that is very close to their heart?
Absolutely.
Excited? Fantastic. I'm equally excited, and because I've known three of them in different capacities, and I have I have a long list of questions for all of you, but I have to start with you first, okay? We are going in the birth order. You're the eldest, of course, and you're also the odd one out.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, being the only gentleman here, you're also the odd one out. So yes, let's ask the first two.
Token in every gathering.
Has to be that. Has to be. So I have to ask just two questions, and we can forget about him. We can have a side party. All right. You have to forget that you're a diplomat and a politician, and you have to cross your heart and hope to die. And you have to tell us who's your favorite sister here.
Look, the kind of questions that no author likes to answer is which is your favorite book of the book. You cannot choose amongst your siblings, your children, or your books.
Always you can.
No,
you just choose not to.
I can't. It depends, of course. I mean, the problem with me, I am a father of twins as well, and I have two sisters who are practically like twins. So I always think of them in the plural. And the one complaint they have against me is I'm constantly saying they instead of a specific you or her. It's always they. And that's something they don't like. They feel I deny them their individuality.
I'm 100% sure there is a lot that they do not like apart from just being referred to as they. Shobha, having Shashi Tharoor as your brother, he takes the limelight all the time. Smita, having Shashi Tharoor as your brother. Shobha, you have to go first and then I'll. Yes, Smita.
First of all, I want to say thank you for coming to listen to us. It really is exciting, both for my sister and me, to be back in Kolkata. We spent our school years here, and it is truly, though I try not to say that too much in public, it is my favorite city in India. And my friends are here, we go to school here, and to be in the Birla Auditorium to look on at all of you is something I really want to say thank you. So thank you for coming in the middle of the day to listen to us. How is it to be in Shashi's? Well, now that I'm building a career in the writing field, it is a question that I'm often asked, and I have a very glib but very sincere answer. I always say, I don't feel like I'm in his shadow, I am in his light. And I mean that when I say it, that, you know, he's very lucky, I would say, when we're close with him, we say that he has two very devoted, adoring sisters, and we are that.
I'm lucky.
And so I love to see him shine, and he shines everywhere. It's a little bit of a hazard to go anywhere with him though, because if you're in a crowd, you know, you literally have to hold on to his kurta because there's people trying to sort of mob for selfies, and I'm as it is with my girth and everything, quite imbalanced and I'm afraid of falling down.
Smita.
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo what Shobha has just said. Straight up, Calcutta is my most favourite city in India, so much so that my Irish husband and I have a home here. And we try and escape the London winters, which is where I live, to be in my favourite city. So I'm thrilled to be here with my siblings, because the last time that the three of us were together on stage was in Bradford in the United Kingdom, which was for Shobha's book launch, Good Innings, about our mother. And so it's wonderful that we are able to be here together in our favourite city. So I must kind of reiterate that. Regarding Shash, I mean, he's 6 years older than I am. He's been my hero. I've always looked up to him. He's always been taller than I, so I have to look up to him. But jokes aside, as we become grown into adults, where the generation gap changes, and that 6-year age gap doesn't matter anymore, we're friends, we're advisors to each other. I tell him off, he tells me off. That's what relationships are about. And all three of us live in 3 different continents. And we work very, very hard at having a close, loving relationship. So it's not about shadow, it's not about that. This is Shash. Yes, he's famous. Yes, he's amazing. Yes, we know all the wonderful things that all of you know and we know too, and we're proud of him for that. But he's our brother, number one, and that's really what matters to us.
Totally. Let me just endorse that. Not only is this relationship extremely important to each of us, but what's been particularly gratifying for all of us as parents is that the next generation is equally close. So Smita's children, Shobha's and mine, have, though they've grown up in 3 different continents, as Smita points out, have actually become and remained very close to each other. And thank God for modern communication and WhatsApp and the internet, because they are constantly in touch with each other. We're a family group in which everyone is busy pulling everyone else's leg, and you forget about fame or limelight or any such thing very quickly when you're in a family group.
Absolutely, because leg pulling happens, and which is what we're going to do a bit of here. Were you the kind of brother, you know, who tends to get protective, and in the process of being protective, tends to be a little overbearing?
No, look, I think I might have been, but the only thing is I went off to college at the age of 16, when they were still not yet at the age when they really needed protection. So they escaped my being too much around in their teens and their adolescence. But, you know, whenever I was back in between, yes, I was a bit of an elder brother. I don't know how they experienced it, but I took that fairly seriously, and it mattered to me. As we grow older, as Smita said, you know, they really became much more like equals. Shobha, in some ways, because she had a home and a flourishing environment early on in life in California, I must say that I would go to her almost in the spirit that I might have wanted to go to my mother. She really was sort of, in that sense, like, though she's much younger than me, almost like a nurturing elder sister, rather than the other way around. So the tables turned very quickly.
What about Smita?
Well, I mean, it's not about tables turning, really. I can think of so many examples. Certainly, for example, when our father died, I was falling apart, as we all were. And Shashi worked for the UN. This is in 1993, by the way, to give context, a long time ago, before WhatsApp and before easy, cheap phone calls and any of that. And he was working for the United Nations, and I was in London. And he would make a point of breaking journey in London for 1 or 2 days. So that first year of deep mourning for me, I must have seen him at least half a dozen times. Now fast forward to more recently, when my brother was recently bereaved, this is now 11 years ago, I got on a plane immediately, and I was in Delhi within hours. And then I stayed for 10 days, following which Shobha followed. And so we were both there. So it's about making the effort, about being there for the person in the best way we can. That's what we do.
And, some of you may know, because Shashi being a public figure, you see all of this on social media, but our mother now lives with my brother and has for almost 6 years, and Smita and I come frequently to be with Mom and to be with Shashi, of course, but he travels a great deal. It's been wonderful because it's almost like coming back home to when our father and mother were together. Shashi gives us the infrastructure in which to come home and spend long periods of time with our mother. And it's really been wonderful. And in a curious way, I was reflecting on this just this last week because we celebrated our mother's 90th birthday a week ago. And, we've had family coming. It's been a bit chaotic while you're going through it. It's overwhelming. But it's all been so heart-filling because in a strange way, we're getting an opportunity almost to relive our childhood together all over again. We are becoming our child selves, which may not necessarily be a good thing, but we're all together, we're spending time together. It's almost like we're making up for the years we didn't have together. Shashi left home at a very early age. He always felt guilty because, he never took us to the movies. He dedicated one of his novels to us, saying, "To my sisters, for the promise of taking," what did you say, exact word?
For the promise of taking you to the movies.
Exactly.
That was
so
my novel.
we didn't have all that, Dada Shonge, we'll go for movie, we'll do this, we'll do that. He took off and he took off and then, he got married early, he was gone, he was already an adult, and we're sort of making up for all of that by having this great opportunity to spend time together.
How much of your personality, all three of you, has been influenced by your siblings?
Well, I certainly think that growing up with women around me has made me, from a very young age, very sensitive to the fact that we, I never got into the patriarchy, male chauvinism, misogyny that I sometimes still see around me in India. So from a very young age, first of all, I was blessed to have a father who was incredibly liberal for his generation when it came to my academic choices and other things. I think even people of my generation or younger parents are directive and forcing their children to study subjects they don't want and so on. My father was amazingly liberal, and he was equally liberal in bringing us up and so on. And so we all felt that we each had our individual worth and that would be respected and valued. And so, to my mind, that was a big advantage. And, my mom was a tough cookie as a mother. She's not this gentle, purring old 90-year-old. But when she was younger, she was a heck of a tough mom to grow up under. And I can tell you, therefore, that at least one strong influence of both siblings and mom was that female influence in my life and in the shaping of my attitudes and personality. So I've never had any difficulty either showing respect to women, talking to them, listening to them, as unfortunately too many of our young boys in India have.
I sound a little like I'm fangirl number one, but I really grew up where my brother influenced me a great deal. I still remember the story, and I say this to children in schools because I visit schools all over India as well with my children's books. And one of the things I still remember, and truly this is an honest, true story, I must have been 9 or 10 years old. I came back from school, I was talking to my brother and I told him, this new girl has come and she's very nice. And Shashi said, "Nice? That is damning with faint praise. You are such an intelligent girl. Can you describe her a little bit more clearly?" And he said, "Use an adjective, use an adverb, whatever it is, come up with a proper description. What do you mean by nice?" So, when I talk to students, I always tell them that as well. And, it stuck with me. To be honest with you, even my going to America, not to take away from my own talents, I suppose, but it's my brother who encouraged me to apply. And I left India and left Kolkata after my +2 because he said, you like both science, you like, humanities. In America, you can get into a liberal arts school. And those days, getting in for undergrad was almost impossible. And my father said, the girls can do whatever the boys did, whatever Shashi did, but you'll have to get a scholarship or you can't go. And luckily I did. I got to one college, I got admission a few places. He paid from his PhD student fees, he paid the $5 each or whatever for those application fees. And I managed to go. So, I've always had that looking up to him, always felt that, in some ways I owe him a great deal. And that's what we're doing by coming back as much as possible to help him with Mom.
Smita, you look like having
Slightly different answer. Because as you know, I'm the youngest, and as Shashi pointed out, I was 9 years old when he left for university, and so from the age of 9, he hasn't lived at home with me. We've spent more time together now as adults. During the pandemic, I happened to be in Delhi on my way to work in Bombay, and that was March 2020, and we all know what happened. And I had the pleasure of living for 5 months with my mother and my brother under the same roof, which was incredible, because I can't remember when I last did that. But in terms of sibling connection, my sister is only 21 months older than I am, and I saw her as a role model, not my brother, because he was somewhere else, he'd gone. And it was Shobha went first abroad, Shobha was, got married, Shobha was having children, whatever it was, career, oh, she's doing this kind of career, oh, this sounds interesting, maybe I should be doing something. So she was far more of my role model in terms of aspirations and so on. When we were children, for example, as you know, Shobha is an accomplished writer and a poet as well, and a voiceover artist, but that's not the point I'm making. I remember us sitting at home, I'm thinking 6, 8, I don't remember. And she'd say, okay, now we're going to write poetry. And I would write The Cat Sat on the Mat or something. I don't actually remember what I wrote. But she would create poetry. And that
Cat Sat on the Mat.
I doubt that, but I mean, that was the point, you see. So, so that's kind of my answer, slightly different, yeah.
We did have some creative fellas, yeah. I mean, I
we did.
A couple of childhood things when we were really small.
Oh, in Bombay.
Yeah.
You were the captain of the ship in the bathtub.
That was me.
Yeah,
and
no, I remember that so clearly.
Stories. I would begin a story and they would have to continue it. And then she'd have to pause and she'd have to continue.
No, in fact, this is really boring. What was really boring about the bathtub one, he was the captain of the ship. Shobha was the lookout. So she had to say, are there any sharks and so on. I was just a boring passenger because I was the youngest. So I sat there like a lemon in the middle. She had action, he had action. And then he'd say, now I am taking you to, I'm making it up obviously because I was 6 years old, 5 years old, Morocco. And he'd say, where is Morocco? And then the passenger was asking this, the lookout was saying, I see Morocco in the distance. Very early memories. And these houses, by the way, you're thinking bathtub India, these were these leftover houses from the colonizing days. And therefore the bathtubs were still there in the house. And that's where we had our fun. Geography lessons under the hands of Shashi.
You would have been a shark, Smita.
No sharks, yeah. My sister had the fun to do that.
Shark wouldn't have been on board the ship.
Friendly shark, we're taking her along.
Yeah, those story sessions we did, by the way, Shashi was with me. He would start the story and stop at the crucial part. None of us were as imaginative in those days as he was, and we'd be stuck with having to take the story further, and we'd want to say something quickly so it came back to him. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember that very well, yeah.
So he hogged all the attention, the story attention.
Attention he did, even in school. He'd come to pick us up from school, and should I say this on stage?
Of course.
You know, I was only in class 5, and all the class 11 and 12 girls, or there was no 12 then, class 11 and 10 students knew me. And so my friends used to always sort of flick their, they'd get cross with me. How come you know all the seniors and we don't? And I said, because Shashi Tharoor is coming to pick me up. He was writing in JS and he was writing everywhere, and he'd come to pick us up from school, and he'd be sitting there in the front seat of the car, and lots of people got to know us that way.
I never got to know their friends, unfortunately.
So, when you're in class 5 and a class 11 student knows you, it's a huge thing. So in many ways, I always felt like I sort of, grew in his light, as I said. I benefited from all this.
How difficult was the decision to become a politician? Coming from a background which is very different from what we see in the parliament today.
Yeah, no, and in fact it was difficult because, frankly, we were all brought up by a salaried middle-class professional, and the expectation was we do that sort of stuff. Actually, my parents, particularly my maternal grandfather, really wanted me to get into the IAS. That's what the middle class expects. A bright kid, IAS is going to be really important. And in some ways, I grew up with the expectation that that's what people want me to do, and I happened to be very good at taking exams. So it so happened that I kept, coming first in class and so on, and therefore the expectation was when the IAS exams rolled around, I'd ace them too. But then what happened was I got a scholarship immediately in my final year of BA and went off to the States to do my master's, and subsequently the emergency was declared literally the summer between my graduation and my departure for the States. And while I was in America, I went to graduate school where I was the only one who'd come straight out of undergraduate. Everybody else had at least 2 years of work experience, and my roommate was a journalist. So he would be continuing to moonlight at a radio station in Boston, and he would come back to the sort of suite we shared, the room we shared, and he would bring vast amounts of what was called telex copy in those days. You know, the teleprinter would produce also, and the American newspapers barely would have one article every couple of days about India. But here, thanks to him, I was getting 10 articles every day from every news agency in the world telling me what was going on in the country during the emergency. And that became a very disillusioning period. And so reading all of that, seeing India through the eyes of the journalists who were reporting all of the stuff, I said, I can't possibly write the IAS exams and serve a government that can do this to its people, kind of thing. And the result was I didn't take the exam. I stayed on for a PhD instead. And from the PhD, I went into the UN directly, without ever being an Indian government servant. And that then led me into the completely different career in life that I led. But I was the guy who held on to his Indian passport, because the UN, in any case, is a place where different nationalities obviously have value. Whereas both my sisters, ironically, Shobha was, as a graduate student, met an Indian boy, but they both stayed on America and became American. Smita married an Indian in India, but he went off to England. He's a doctor, and then they became British. So suddenly here are the three of us, a fairly close-knit family, and we belong to three different continents, countries, passports, everything else. But because I clung on to this Indianness, and since I was writing so much, even while abroad, I would come back from work, and when time permitted, I would write in the evenings and nights and so on. I was constantly sort of scratching at this itch of what it means to be Indian, the forces that had made and nearly unmade India. The emergency was long over by then. I'm just saying the kinds of things that occupied my mind. And so my first works were fiction, especially because the UN rules were very restrictive about what you could say about member states. And so you didn't want to end up losing your job, but I did write a lot of fiction. The Great Indian Novel came out when I was in the UN, and so did a few other books. And then I took a bit of a risk with India from midnight to the millennium, because there I was going to say some very critical things about pretty much all the governments. But I had this, perhaps this somewhat naive belief that the one government I could afford to antagonize or insult would be my own, because we are a democracy and therefore they're not going to complain to the UN. And indeed it's true, no one did. So I wrote India from midnight to the millennium and all of that. But in the end, when my UN career came to an end, some of you may know I ran for Secretary General of the UN as the official Indian nominee, which was actually a great honor considering I'd never served the Indian government for a day. But I did know many of the Indian leaders, because as a senior UN official, having risen through the ranks at the UN by then, I was often the one they would have to meet when they came. So I met all our prime ministers. They used to be a very pleasant ritual. The prime minister would be sitting in the wings before going on to speak at the General Assembly podium for 15-20 minutes. And during that time, the person who had to keep him company was the senior Indian on the staff, and that was me. So I had some very interesting conversations with Vajpayee Saab, Manmohan Singh Saab, and so on. And they all knew me. And the interesting thing about all of this was that when I ran and lost and then decided eventually that I might come back to India, they invited me to contest. Now, let me be very honest and say that I said yes without a second's hesitation. It was partially out of sheer ignorance, because I had left India at 19 when the voting age was 21. And therefore I never even voted, let alone actually seen an election up close. I had no idea what it would entail. I had this all my books about India had been this macro view, seeing the forest but not knowing the trees. And that suddenly meant that when I came into politics, it was out of sheer ignorance. I'm sorry for such a long answer to your question, but that was where, if I had to answer your question, I would say it was not something I prepared for, not something I'd thought about, not something I knew about. I was plunged into a new world entirely by circumstance.
Did it unnerve you? Yeah, did it unnerve the two of you as siblings?
More than unnerving, yes, I mean, it unnerved us, it stressed us out, it disturbed us. My mother was deeply unhappy. She said, I mean, she had her own notion of what she thought were politicians, and she said, you are not that. You know, you are a scholar, you're an intellectual, you are a highly successful diplomat. You're going to come back and people will spoil your name. This is my mother's words. And, you know,
She was right too, wasn't she?
Yes. You know, and we have all sort of, in fact, I was fortunate because I quit a job and jumped on a plane the day after, because just as a family member, even though I couldn't vote, I worked on his first campaign. A whole bunch of, I mean, it was incredible. Actually, the energy of that first campaign was amazing. He had volunteers, young boys and men, and even women. Did any women come to volunteer at that time? I can't remember. Essentially, there was a group of people who had worked in the UN in different parts of the world who gave up their holiday because nobody had money to pay them to volunteer in Thiruvananthapuram to help Shashi's campaign. And I flew down from California, and I was with him. And the thing is, we can't get into this really long story, but even the people who, you know, even though the Congress party had given him the ticket to contest, there were people within the party who were very unhappy that he had been selected. So it was a really dog-eat-dog fight, to use an American term. And it was but there was an incredible energy because a whole group of young people came, giving up holidays to support Shashi, and I was so privileged to be part of that 1 month, to see the sort of energy. And he, you know, we watched our brother work from 6 in the morning till 1 in the night, you know, on the streets of Thiruvananthapuram, and he won by a landslide.
In April.
Yeah, and it was in the heat. He won by a landslide. Even though everybody tried to, you know, he'd put up posters in the morning, somebody tore it down by evening. I mean, that is the nature of politics in India. It's a scary, scary situation. Yes, we were not very happy, and sometimes we're still not very happy.
Smita.
Short answer, really. I mean, I think it's been said, because we could keep talking about Shashi and why is he a politician. So I think summary, Shobha has mentioned it already. I think we leave it at that for the moment.
But let me say, I'm only in politics. I genuinely believe in a democracy. Politics is the way you can make a difference to the lives of people. And you know, somebody who's been writing about India, its problems, its issues, thinking about them, to get an opportunity to actually do something about them, that's something I would never.
No, and I remember Shashi saying that when I come back to India, I want to make a difference. He joined the United Nations to make a difference. He came back into politics to make a difference. And that's why he's here.
And absolutely, the one other thing is, as he told my mother when she said, it'll spoil your name, he said, if we continue to believe that, young, bright, intelligent, caring people who care about the country will never join politics. We'll never be able to make a change until we go out there and put the right kind of people in charge. So, you know, it was all done for the right reasons. As Smita said, Shashi said, and we used this line, by the way, somebody once asked me, and I said, India matters to me too. I said, you know, as Shashi says, India matters to me, I want to matter to India. That is a Shashi Tharoor line that's quoted. But it's truly that, you know, came back, and if you have people in power who are inspiring, who empower others to think similarly, it's a good thing. It is really giving back to the nation.
Right. So there was obviously, you know, some kind of disagreement about your decision to be a politician, some unhappiness, conflict, sibling conflict. How do you resolve your fights? Do you fight to begin with?
When are we talking about? When we were little ones or when we are our age? At any age?
At any age. Siblings are siblings at any age.
I don't know about fighting. I wouldn't use the word fight. No, we don't fight.
We disagree.
We might disagree. We might agree to disagree. We might question, and we might say, Shash, you're a Buddhu, why are you doing X? And he might explain to us why he doesn't think he's a Buddhu, for example. And that's it. But I wouldn't say fight. We don't actually fight. Seriously, I'm not just saying it for the sake of it.
We do disagree. We do quarrel, but we have the same, so we're all on the same train, we're all on the same path, we believe in the same things, to quite a degree. If there's a disagreement, most of the time Shashi is not a man who gives to temper. That I have to admit. He's not a man who gives to temper, but he occasionally provokes temper in us, especially as we get older. as we get older, because he is multitasking and doing too much. And as I said, he is not paying attention. And a woman of a certain age, as you may all agree with me, my friends, certainly do not like to be confused with another woman. In other words, if he calls me Smita, and why did you say that, Smita? And I said, well, I didn't say that. That is not right. So now there are more disagreements of that kind. You've got to keep your sister straight, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All your women straight.
Yes.
Otherwise, there will be trouble. So on this was a flippant sort of a question, but how do you come together as a family? I mean, every family has its own system. If there is a problem and your family has seen a bit of, your own share of very public issues, and I'm pretty sure even if you live in different continents, it's impossible to be not impacted by it, despite the distance. So, is there a mechanism at work? How do we deal with A, B, or C? How do you get together?
We have a tremendous amount of faith in each other, and we know that each of us is absolutely fundamentally loyal to the other two. I mean, there's no mistrust, there's no doubt, there's never been any reason for any of that. And so whenever there is a crisis, as Smita said, when Sunanda passed away, she was on a plane within hours. That's the sort of, sticking together I've seen from my sisters. And I will be very honest and say that I don't think I would have survived without them. I mean, they have been a tremendous emotional support base for me throughout my rough and tumble of political and public life. And at the same time, they keep me straight, because with them there is no, she talks about hero worship, she's doing a speech, there's no hero worship that I see on a daily basis. I'm their brother, and they'll tell me exactly what they think and where I should get off. And I respect that. Whenever we have problems, and touch wood, the problems are by and large smaller ones. We haven't had any existential crisis in recent years, but whenever there are problems, we usually converge and agree. We are on a WhatsApp group, the three of us, which even if they're in different countries, or one is in India, the other one is not, or whatever, we always consult. We wait for all three views to be heard before a decision is made. And I think that's been a terrific thing. And to be honest, having my mother with me has been very important. But at the same time, I couldn't possibly have looked after her the way in which I've been able to, because these two take turns in coming and spending time with her. So all of these things, I think, are an essential part of what makes us as a trio work.
So about you two taking care of him, what about him taking care of the two of you?
Well, he does, as I said.
Perhaps you should answer that, Shashi.
I don't do enough to take care of both of them. I mean, Smita was very sweet to acknowledge my emotional support when our father passed, because she was the baby of the family, his darling, and she was very, very emotionally devastated. With Shobha, touch wood, she hasn't had any crisis that has required me to do very much with her, but I've visited her a lot and seen a lot of her family growing up, and I'm very, very close to her kids. And they are I suppose I'd like to feel I've been a bit of a presence in their lives, and now it's with us kids as well. So, I mean, in that sense, yes, but taking care of in the way in which they take care of me emotionally, I would never claim credit for having done very much there. I'm there if they need me. God forbid they ever have a crisis, I will always be there for them. But the traffic has been mainly, I'm sorry, this is the cliche, the woman nurturing and so on. They're doing the nurturing and I'm doing the lapping it up.
But you've made it possible for us, really, because our mom was a fiercely independent person who lived on her own, but, refused to sort of create necessarily a comfortable environment, so she would say, oh, I only need part-time help, I only need a part-time driver, I only need part-time. And now we're all getting to a stage when we certainly enjoy the benefits of my brother having a cook at home or all of that, because if you're also taking care of a mom and needing to do all of the physical work, it's much harder. So he takes care of us in those ways by giving us a very seamless infrastructure to come into, which makes it a lot easier for us to come to, And of course he's always there if we ever need him for anything. In fact, sometimes I tell him he's quicker to respond to messages than many of his staff, and his staff are here. But I will ask the same question of two people, And the staff obviously have a lot on their plate, so I'm, and they're my friends and they're here and they're going to go home with us. But what I was saying is Shashi will get to it. If his sister's asking something, he will respond in the middle of his 3,000 things to do in one day.
I don't think it's really about do we nurture each other. It isn't like that. I mean, we are 3 adults who live in 3 different continents. We work very hard, as I already mentioned, to have a close and loving relationship. We visit all the time. My sister and I take turns to come and be with Mum. And we're there for each other. And I think it's just being. We know that we're there for each other. And it's not about trying to itemize that this happened, that happened, the other happened. If I need him, I know he'll be there for me, and he knows the other way around. And that's really that's all it's about. And it's the same with my sister.
What about your individual private circles that have nothing to do with each other? Do they overlap, and how are those negotiations done? Because friends and friends, 3 sets of friends. Oh, so as children, you're always fighting with, you're ignoring us when you're with your friends. Mm-hmm. And those kind of things happen. Of course, everybody's grown up. There are different lives and different issues to take care of. Your lives as individuals beyond each other's siblings.
We won't get into our careers, but in terms of our friends, because my sister and I met each other more often in those days than we did with Shashi, now we are coming all the time to his house. In the earlier years, sort of the in-between years, Smita and I met a great deal. So I do know many of her friends, and she does know many of mine. I mean, the life that I lived in California, in some ways I would say, my sister has experienced, just as I have gone and attended occasions in her place in London, and people will know who I am, and I know who they are. I know who her best friend is, or whatever it is. So we have been in each other's lives, and now that we come often to Delhi, we know that as well, from Shashi's perspective.
And of course, now I have a home in Calcutta, and I have many friends here that are independent of both my siblings. Some old friends that Shobha and I both had from when we lived in Calcutta, some new friends, and hopefully they're in the audience. Hi, friends. Can't see from here if you are in the audience, but friendships are, I suppose the one thing I do is, for me, especially because of the work that I do as well, when I'm meeting and creating new friends, because I have my father's surname, I haven't changed my surname, and we are in an Indian environment, you might say to me, for example, hello, I'm Nishtha Gautam, and my response would be, hello, I'm Smita. And the only purpose of that is so that Nishtha, whoever the Nishtha might be, and I are having a proper conversation rather than, oh, you're a Tharoor, and we go down a whole other conversation. So, as I've already said, I'm very proud of my brother. I think, there is no envy, there's none of that. I love him dearly. But in terms of relationships, when we have the same surname and we have the genetic loading of looking like each other and sounding like each other, inevitably the comparisons come in. So in India, I have to navigate my own relationships, which is easy enough, because we're all adults. If you were 7, 8, and 10 or something, that's completely different.
Yeah, but I agree. I don't know if it gets easier, because if you do not have access to Shashi, you would want to have access to Shobha and Smita and Shobha. If they are naive, they would, okay, hanji, main baat kar lungi. This is how
that happens a lot.
Yeah, that does happen.
Let's not even go there.
Especially since I'm out there now all the time, people take my number, and when you have been on a stage together or whatever it is, but I find out later that sometimes they want to get through to my brother because of the number that they have, and that becomes a little weary.
The consequence of that, however, is that I have far too many messages in my WhatsApp as well as in my email than I can possibly cope with. So I am drowning in a backlog that is, it's ridiculous. Even today, I just happened to open a message inviting me to an event on the 3rd of September as chief guest, and I had to apologize saying I only saw it today. And, saying, for God's sake, in future, please ask my office, because they at least might see it sooner. So this business of going through Shobha and Smita may not always help, because they might be able to get my number out, but they won't necessarily get my eyeballs in. Sorry.
But also they do trouble you. I know Shashi sometimes goes to events where what has been really comical is that he's come back and said, oh, I met somebody who said that they were in your class, and he hadn't fully paid attention. Turned out that some of them claimed that I was in college with them, and I didn't even study in India. So how could I have been in college with them? So, and then there would be men who would say, to Smita that, oh, I went to school with your sister. And my sister would have to tell them, but she went to an all-girls school. So it really makes no sense at all sometimes.
But this is how we roll. Yeah.
We open it up to questions.
Yes, I think now is the time when I can open it for the audience. And if there are... Yes. Do we have mics here?
And some lights so we can see the questions.
Yeah.
They're all plunged into darkness at the moment.
Also, if you are taking questions, I have to make this request that the question has to be a question, not a comment, and you cannot take more than 10 seconds to articulate your question.
Good evening, sir and ma'am. I'm Meenakshi. This question is for you, sir.
Yep.
Your reputation as a human thesaurus is so famous. I know. So, are you really, you think you have to think when you talk to a little simpler people like us?
Not at all.
You have to check your vocabulary?
Listen, I'd like to think that I'm a communicator, and therefore there's no point communicating if people don't understand what you're saying. So I always try, I hope, to pitch a particular point to what the audience wants to understand and hear. I don't know, did I say anything today that nobody here understood?
No, today you were quite simple,
This is
sir.
typically the way I am, I promise.
This is normal, Shashi. Sorry to interrupt. The thing is, sometime many years ago, I think he tweeted something about the word Farrago, and as a result, there is this whole WhatsApp university going around India that makes an assumption that Shashi only speaks large words that none of us can pronounce or spell.
But we are a fan of those
But that's
large
not
words.
true. He speaks like any one of us.
I assure you.
Sir, a little small question more.
Okay.
With two such empowered women in your home, are you more diplomatic at home or in parliament?
That's a great question.
No, I wouldn't say I'm diplomatic at home, but my sisters actually, there's no pretense, there's no need to be, to worry about the party line, there's no need to worry about what will people think, how will it be reported. These are siblings, I mean, it's just like you with your brother or if you've got one. I mean, we talk very frankly and honestly to each other, promise you. No diplomacy at all.
Any other questions? Please raise your hand so mics can reach you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good evening, Smita ma'am, good evening, Shobha ma'am, and a very good evening to the amazing Dr. Tharoor.
Thank you, ma'am.
You are a true alchemist because, as your book says, an alchemist is someone who changes the world through his words, and you have changed generations of Indians and stimulated them for their love for words. I want to ask you that what helps you to stay on track? We all know that you've gone through your fair share of troubles, just like all of us have.
Fair? Unfair, sure.
Unfair. I agree with you, sir. Unfair. But even now, you're always pushing the envelope. You're doing something which is going beyond the herd. You're not following them. And that is extremely inspirational. So,
Thank
you.
Let me tell you truthfully, and it applies to everybody in this audience. The most important thing any one of us can do as human beings is to be true to ourselves. Know yourself, know who you are, what you believe in, what you value, what you're good at, what you're bad at, what your capabilities and limitations are, and then be the best version of yourself that you can be. That's a philosophy. I'm constantly saying this to kids in high school and college, because ultimately when I say to them, nobody else can be you. So be the best you that you can be. Nobody else can do that. And if you can be the best you that you can be, that means bringing the best out of yourself. I mean, there's a lot of very brilliant, talented people who just don't make the effort. And that, I think, is a cardinal sin. Because, it's such a blessing to be given talents. And Shobha, for example, was a full-time mom for a very long time. And once her kids grew up and went to college, she just blossomed. She's a wonderful poet. She writes books, she writes children's books, she writes occasionally for adults as well. She's somebody who has remembered that talent that had to lie dormant for family reasons for a long time, and it's now in full flower, and I love and appreciate that. Smita similarly does work that she acquired training to be able to do, and she's a lifestyle coach and a management trainer and so on. All of these things mean that they've looked into themselves and said, this is something we can do, and we're going to make the effort to do it. And I say that every single person in this room, we can do all that. So for me, I always said, even when I came into politics, that there's no point being a cookie-cutter politician. If all you want is somebody who will dutifully raise their hands and say, yes, you don't need me. So if you brought me into politics, you want me to use my mind, my ideas, my values, my thoughts, and indeed my ways of expressing myself. And therefore, I will not be dissuaded from doing that, even if sometimes it is uncomfortable for others and for me. But I think it's important, It's not that, I've had enough sort of experience in the hothouse of the United Nations to know that sometimes you have to be careful not to offend others, you have to be careful not to exceed your own brief, and so on. And that's part of common sense. But within that, I'd like to think I've never said anything I don't believe in. I've never had to, I don't know how to lie in my personal life or in my public life. And therefore, you'll either get the truth or you'll get silence on a particular subject if the truth is too uncomfortable to express. That's the extent of my diplomacy. But with me, what you see, what you hear is what you get. That's why.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to take another few seconds and let you know that there are lots of middle schoolers who are learning punctuation with the help of Let's See Grandma. And I want to thank you for that. And I don't know if they get the joke, but yes. And I hope that you have a book.
If you don't put a comma after the eat, it becomes Let's See Grandma.
It's Red and Mutton has its own place, but so does this. And I hope that they'll allow us to get this book signed. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can we pass on a mic at the back? There are quite a few people.
Is it okay if I ask the question?
Whoever's got the mic should go ahead.
Yeah.
I won't take too long. Just firstly, thank you very much for allowing me to answer this. It's a bit of a pinch me moment that I'm here looking at all three of you. Actually, I've had the pleasure of following Dr. Tharoor's career for a long time, and because I was supposed to come here, I did a bit of reading on the both of you as well. The thing is, just my question was actually broadly to all three of you. As somebody, personally, I can relate to that as well, as somebody who's spent a lot of time in multiple continents, whether it's in England or in the US. The recent climate of the attitude towards Indians has obviously changed. And as somebody who's also come back from a long time away, especially in the West, it is a bit of a doldrum for all of us, thinking about where our futures lie and what our loyalty, I would say loyalty is probably the wrong word, but what our priority should be heading into the future, with India shaping up as a technical marvel, definitely, but also what would your advice be to young Indians who clearly have the potential and clearly have been there and done it in multiple countries before, but they want to get back to their country, not just in a political way, but also, for example, as I am, in a more technical, AI-related manner. What would your advice be? And my question is broadly to all three of you. Thank you very much.
Well, I think it's easier for me to answer because I actually went there, lived abroad, worked internationally, and came back to India. So for me, there was never any doubt. I'd written somewhere, I looked in the mirror and I saw an Indian, so there wasn't any question in my mind that I would be anything else. I think, in all fairness to my sisters, they became other nationalities because it was more convenient and because it was also more acceptable. Today, I would say that somebody in their position might think twice about, for example, a choice to become American, where the resentments are so much more visible, so much more loudly expressed, and in some ways so much more overtly hostile, especially to people who are visibly different. If you were a European, you would not face the kind of hostility that brown people seem to be facing today. And that's worrying. It's disappointing, but it's also a reflection of the fact that when economic times are hard, when people feel they can't get jobs easily, when they feel that their dream of doing better than their parents is being thwarted by people who don't look like them, who've come in and taken those jobs or whatever, there's bound to be some resentments. This is essentially of what we're seeing. And we are living through a period where hostility to migrants, increasing xenophobia, and often along with it racism, unfortunately are occurring pretty much everywhere around the world. And let's face it, it's not just in the West. There is a fair bit of it today in our own country, towards people who've come from elsewhere into our country. So let's be honest and say that when there is a sense that people are competing for scarce resources, very often you try and distinguish who's entitled to those more than others, and you push people aside. So I would say to young people, look, if you're getting a scholarship to go and study in a good American university, by all means take it. Improve your knowledge, improve your skills, maybe even work for a little while if you can without getting to be the object of other people's hate. But then come back, because this is a place where you do belong, where your country needs you, wants you, can use you, and where you don't have to worry about whether you look like others or not. I mean, we're a great mess right there. Come back and help build India. So thank you for being here and working in AI.
Shobha.
I was going to say that I did go as a student with the full intention of returning, and as my brother mentioned, I met someone in graduate school and decided to get married, and he was working in the artificial intelligence in those days and communications field and computer science, and there really weren't any opportunities in India, so we decided to stay on. And I raised children there, so I was there. But I say this today, and I said this even when I moved to America, we're all global citizens. You know, the first thing I discovered when I went for a Thanksgiving holiday is that grandparents or parents ask similar questions of their children in America as they do here. I went to Thanksgiving with my friend Mary, who at the time had a boyfriend who was Irish American, and her grandfather was Italian American, and he asked her, to me they all look the same. I mean, they said just as maybe all Indians look the same to some people. You know, two white men with particular, lighter hair. I couldn't tell whether you're Italian American or Irish American, at least I couldn't in those days. And the grandfather said, oh, you didn't find a nice, good Italian boy, or whatever. So, it made me laugh, and I wrote a letter home to my parents saying, look, everywhere in the world is similar. So travel, going abroad, just to answer that question, having opportunities to think like global citizens is our responsibility today if we are able to do it. And if you can do it through study or through work or through other opportunities, it's great to do it. And India gives us that opportunity too. I had friends who came abroad on Rotary scholarships, on Lions scholarships, on various other kinds of government support. It's, sitting in our own little narrow places with our own narrow thinking is never good, whatever it is. It's important for us to sort of go out there, have our foot, and our father raised us that way. Our parents were diasporic Malayalis in some ways. My father went off to London, then came back, married my mother, took off to London. I've written a book about it. If you ever want to read it, it's an inspiring book for a new generation. It's called Good Innings, The Extraordinary Ordinary Life of Lily Tharoor. And it's not what maybe Penguin intended when they asked me to write the book. It's not little salacious details or anything. It's an inspiring story of a woman of a particular generation who happened to be our mother, and it really is a tribute to women everywhere. So, what I'm saying is that we have to think the way my father thought and told us, you should be as comfortable sitting on the floor, eating on a plantain leaf with your fingers as you are using the right cutlery on a table if you go to a Western setting, or even in a setting where you're served Western food and you need to know how to use your implements. I think the onus is in all of us to sort of embrace the best from all worlds, all cultures, and come back and give as much as we can to whatever world we come back to. So that's just my little addition. And I raise my kids.
Well said. I don't really have much more to add. This is the disadvantage of being the youngest, but no, I'm kidding. I don't have much more to add than that. I am now in the later part of my career. I'm also an adjunct professor, and I am teaching at O.P. Jindal University outside of Delhi. And the subject matter that I'm teaching is behavioral neuroscience and leadership. And so, very simply put, what I am teaching these young people, the young men and women average age 22 to 25, is about their own behavior. How do they assess the world they're living in? What is it they want to do? What kind of work it's about their own behavior and how they can be comfortable in their own skin, going out in this global world that we all live in. And that's really crucial. That's all that really matters, Ram.
We have time for just 2 more questions. So right at the back. Can we even...
Very back, yeah.
Hello, sir.
The last row or something.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Well, whoever has the mic should just ask it, because we can't see really.
So, hello, sir. My question to you is that many of the students these days, our generation, is suffering from procrastination and writer's block. So, one suggestion to overcome that.
Well, look, procrastination is an affliction that every generation has suffered from, right? I mean, and we are all taught, don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. I've lived up to that myself. If you find the time to do something, do it. I don't know that there's any magic formula other than you tell yourself, if you wait till tomorrow and something goes wrong, you can't find the time to do it tomorrow, you may end up failing to do it at all, and that will be a failure against you, a black mark against you. Better do it now, get it done, even if it's earlier than you need to do it, so that you know it's done, it's achieved, and you can move on to other things. I often find myself, for example, as a columnist, Nishtha used to be one of my editors.
I can vouch for it.
I often
always
write,
on time.
Yeah, and I that's partially because sometimes if I happen to have time today and my column is only due next week, I don't wait till the day before next Monday. I write it now and I keep it aside and then I send it to her when she's expecting it. So that I think is the more efficient way to do things. Do them when you can rather than when you must. And that's useful in life, generally as a cardinal principle. But you still have to do it. You've got to motivate yourself to do it.
Thank you so much, sir.
And
I have a question for Shobha ma'am.
Yeah, certainly.
Ma'am, I'm an aspiring poet. So I just want to ask you, what is the one suggestion or rather advice you would give to the young poets these days?
So, this is again nothing particularly original, but read a lot of poetry if you want to write poetry. I have lots of children coming to me to say that they don't want to read, but they want to write. And that just doesn't make sense to me because we didn't grow up that way. You've got to be able to write, read in the field that you're in, If you want to be a poet, be familiar with meter and rhythm and the beauty of the sound of voice, the sound of the cadence of words, understand the different forms of poetry. It could be that you want to write free verse, it could be you want to write something in a particular technical form, like a villanelle or a sonnet. Read a lot of sonnets, it'll give you some ideas. So, that's really the basic advice. I think beyond that, keep doing it. Keep doing it and don't try to correct while you're writing. Just write, put it out there. I do that. I write in a card, I write on my phone, I write sometimes when I've seen something interesting or when I come across a phrase, and that very often stimulates my poetry. And so I get a title first before I get the poem. I'll put the title on the page and I write about it. And often it's not good enough even for me. I have to fix it. But you've got something out there that you can work with. Thank you.
I might add what Shobha said applies also to prose, it's not just poetry. If you don't read, you really can't write. So read extensively, know what's good, develop a feel for what's good, what's effective. If it's effective for you as a reader, you might be able to write like that, or at least even if you don't want to write in that particular style, you know what works as a reader. You'll try and work for readers in what you write. So read and do. These are the two things that she said that I will fully endorse.
Good evening, sir and ma'am. It's an honor to be
This
here.
is the last
and get a
question.
chance to engage with all of you. I'm Smita Tharoor from Shashi Tharoor College. I'd like to pose my question to Mr. Tharoor.
Yeah.
We've always seen you advocate for women's rights, and as a political science student, I've been studying how laws evolve to address gender-based violence. You've introduced the private members' bill in the Lok Sabha on Friday to criminalize marital rape. How do you see the criminalization of marital rape strengthening constitutional values like dignity, autonomy, and equality within marriage?
Thank you. Well, this is a very important issue, and I'm very glad you noticed it. In fact, I planned to write a column about this too, because I was shocked at the fact that India is one of the few democracies in the world where it is legal for a husband, quote unquote, to rape his wife. First of all, the assumption in the law is that the sacrament of marriage is so sacred that whatever takes place in it cannot be classified in any other category. there's an implicit assumption that the man's conjugal rights are not something that can be challenged in a court of law. But the problem is that what they're overlooking in taking the stand is that marital rape is not about conjugal rights or about love or about the conduct of a marriage. It is about violence. And violence is criminalized in our country for good reason. Because as you said, it affects another person's bodily autonomy, agency, and rights to be free from violence. The second problem with marital rape, which is not sufficiently appreciated, is a lot of it happens within couples where the husband is separated but a divorce has not taken place. Very often you've got, for example, families where a talaq has been pronounced, the husband is living separately, but when he feels he wants it, he'll come and rape the wife, and nothing can be done against it because they're still husband and wife. That's a travesty that should never be allowed to happen. And so we need to stand up for the rights of women, which in many ways are being overlooked in the existing exception. I'm only talking about removing an exception. You see, there is a very strong rape law in our country. The problem is that rape law actually has a provision saying there's an exception that husbands enjoy. Why should they enjoy it? I mean, to be honest, if you love your wife, you would respect her when she doesn't want to have sex with you. And if you don't respect her, then frankly, if she really feels you've done her violence, she has every right to ensure that you're punished for it. As far as I'm concerned, this kind of law is massively necessary in India, and I'm going to advocate it. And I have already, I'm starting that women ministers for this particular portfolio have defended such an exception. I think it's truly astonishing, and we should speak out openly against it.
Thank you, sir.
I had one last request, please. Dr. Tharoor, you had sung a lovely number.
I had one
90th birthday.
Yes.
Of your wife. Please, just 2 lines.
Not really an occasion for songs, and there's no music going along with it, but anyway.
After the heavy stuff, something sweet.
Yeah, okay. Well, this was a song that she mentioned, which I had no idea somebody was filming. I had no idea somebody would put it out on social media. But it's a song from my childhood that my mother enjoyed when I used to sing it in my early teens, called Lily the Pink. And the appropriateness was my mother's name is Lily. So that was what she's referring to that I had sung on my mother's 90th birthday. So if you want, I'll sing 2 verses. I mean, the chorus is very simple. We'll drink a drink to Lily the Pink, the Pink, the Pink, the savior of the human race, 'cause she invented medicinal compound, most efficacious in every case. A Johnny Hammer had a terrible stammer. He could hardly say a word until they gave him medicinal compound, and now he's seen but never heard. That's probably the right place to stop. Usha, the great Usha Uttapizya.
Who can say no to that?
You made me sing in front of her and I'm thoroughly embarrassed.
That was so marvelous. Hi everybody, namaskar, namaskaram, sanskal, salam alaikum. It's just fantastic. The entire evening was so beautiful, and you know, everybody saw the family part of all of you, and I feel so proud to say that I'm part of Lily the Pink, yes, and I've known Lily Auntie for so many years. I just feel sad that my whole thing was preempted by her because I wanted to say the one thing nobody touched upon was, I've always believed that there's a song in everybody's heart, really. And though I did want to say something very cerebral, everybody said it anyway, and who could beat you for that? But I just wanted that, is there any family song that you ever sang together? There's got to be something in some language.
Not for 60 years.
Richard, I know.
Yeah, but I Which one?
None of us are really very
We're all going on a summer holiday.
Only it's winter time.
I mean, the thing is, my brother can sing, but I can't sing to save my life. So
But
that's the other
it would be wonderful if you all just did something together. Yeah. Because everybody does that. Everybody sings, yeah? Come on.
Chirpy, chirpy, cheep, cheep. Does anybody remember that from 1971?
Yes.
Our mother went on a holiday with a group of women. You know, I think you have these women's groups that tour.
No, but
They
Lily
went to
auntie
Europe.
always
She had a
loved me
superb
to
voice.
sing, yes.
And
You
I
imagine
in our home
loved
when
me
we
to
were
sing.
kids. I still remember.
And Usha would sing at home. Yeah, we remember that as children.
We
yeah.
remember you singing.
But
Where's your mama gone?
Where's
Shash?
your mama gone?
Where's
Oh,
your
God,
mama
thank you.
gone? Where's your mama?
We have to do it with you, please.
Yeah, okay. I've also...
Last night I heard my mama singing a song. Oh, chirpy, chirpy, cheep, cheep. Woke up in the morning and my mama was gone. We all have different registers. I don't think it'll work.
That's okay.
You can't sing
It's
to
just
save our
lovely.
lives.
It's called a symphony.
Cheer. That's it. That'll do.
Yeah, that was really lovely. And we had such a lovely
1971.
time.
It was a deeply traumatizing song. The idea that mother would
was
give us a
pretty
record
scary,
saying
yeah.
that children would wake up and say, "Where's your mama gone? She's gone." There we are.
And Lily the Pink, who destroyed so many people's lives, right?
Exactly. But anyway, thank
We
you for
obviously
that.
sang mischievous
At least
songs.
you helped us sing a little bit.
Since you
Yes.
have the mic, you can sing it. Come on, Lily.
No, I wanted to dedicate the song to you, just a couple of lines, because, you know, we all appreciate all that you've done. Your sisters love you so much, unconditionally, your family does, and I love you dearly like all the rest over here. And I'd like to say that, you know, one of the reasons why we respect him so much and admire him so much is because he always did it his way. Yeah. And there's one thing I should always be grateful for, because I don't get an opportunity to say this to many people, but when he invited me to sing at the UN, just for his staff, you know, and when I was entering, there was this, where they frisk you, and the thing went, key, 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 so I took out my bangles, then I tried again, and it went, key, 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 so I took out my thali, that's my Mangal Sutra, I took out everything, and then I said, look, it's Mr. Shashi Tharoor who's invited me, how can you say I can't go inside? So they called him down. And then he explained to them that I was wearing jari on my sari. It was a Kanjivaram sari which had gold on it, and it just went key, 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 key. So I'm ever grateful to you for making the Kanjivaram so popular in the UN.
Do you ever wear it through airport security?
It's just fantastic. And whenever I have a joke to say, and you know, I say that all the people are thinking that South Indians don't know anything at all, they're not even talking proper English. I say, what about my Mr. Shashi Tharoor? And I get the biggest applause for that. So, God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Ms. Shobha Tharoor Srinivasan, and Ms. Smita Tharoor for this wonderful
Okay,
conversation.
since we're on the subject of songs, I really have to do this one, because this is the one thing I've sung to both my sisters when they turned an unmentionable age.
That's great.
फूलों का तारों का सबका कहना है, एक हजारों में मेरी बहना है, सारी उम्र हमें संग रहना है, फूलों का तारों का सबका कहना है. Thanks for being my sister.
Such a tearjerker that was, and I love you for that. And the sisters are so beautiful, really.
Thanks, Usha. Thank you, Nishtha, for your wonderful
Thank you,
questions.
everyone.
That was all
Thank
good.
you for staying, for listening, for coming.
It was truly a delight to listen to your thoughts, reflection, and of course the singing. A heartfelt thank you to our conversationalist for the evening, Ms. Nishtha Gautam, for steering the conversation forward with such finesse and grace. We would like to thank our associates, Sanskriti, Sagar and FICCI Flow Calcutta, for coming together and lending their valued support, making this evening even more meaningful. Last but not the least, a warm thank you to our wonderful and engaged audience. Your presence affirms the value of thoughtful engagements in today's world. Thank you and have a lovely evening. Could I please have upon the stage the FICCI Flow Committee for a picture?